Well, India is all set to host the Chinese foreign minister today. He'll be in town for 2 days. But ahead of that, we are already seeing protests in Delhi breaking out. Tibetan refugees are protesting against the visit of the Chinese foreign minister. It's a 2-day visit by Wang Yi. Remember, he's already in town. He'll be meeting Sushma Swaraj in about half an hour from now, and will also be meeting, or rather calling on Prime Minister Narendra Modi tomorrow, as well as President Pranab Mukherjee. Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu is now joining us with more details. Kamal, it's more or less customary that we've seen these protests happening by the Tibetan refugees whenever a Chinese dignitary is in town. But what is the situation like? Where are they protesting? And has the police taken any action, or are they allowing them to protest?
Well, it seems to be a peaceful source of protest, and as you said, this is a customary now that every time there is a Chinese military who comes to visit India, there is protest done by these Tibetan refugees. And remember, this is a very sensitive issue, and this also comes on the same time as the spokesperson of China, who had actually the foreign ministry also criticizing very much the Dalai Lama. So in that sense, it's been an extremely sensitive issue, and we've all known that it's a very hardline stance, even though US would have wanted that China take a soft stance. But we remember China has taken a very hard stance against Dalai Lama, even though in the past few years there has been a lot of attempt done to have a word.
Okay.
But obviously China as a country has taken a very hardline stance, and we know whether it was Li Keqiang who had come in earlier last year when the UPA government was there, or earlier when Chinese dignitary would come, there would be even attempts of self-immolation. So this time, the protest that we are seeing is a peaceful protest. This is also because of police activism. They have not let these protesters go in. Okay. Otherwise, there could have been some sort of protest, or we can still expect and anticipate some sort of protest in front of Chinese embassy or in the place of the meeting.
Right, and usually it is outside the Chinese embassy that the Tibetan refugees go ahead and protest. Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu getting us all the details about the protests happening in Delhi against the Chinese foreign minister's visit. In fact, he landed in Delhi for his 2-day visit just a short while back. And Wang Yi will be meeting Sushma Swaraj and call on PM Narendra Modi in a visit that is more focused on trade ties than on the contentious border issue.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is on a 2-day visit to India. Wang's visit would mark the first contact between China and the new government in India.
Our understanding is that he comes as a special envoy of the President of China to engage with our leadership, and we will take it from there. So we would be in a listening mode to engage and see. After all, diplomacy, the essence of diplomacy is engagement, and we welcome the visit of the Chinese foreign minister.
While the vexed border dispute festers, both sides have decided to focus more on trade and economic cooperation. While China wants to increase bilateral trade that it benefits from, for India, narrowing the trade deficit and accessing Chinese markets for its IT and pharma products is essential. Wang Yi will meet External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj at 11:30 a.m. On Monday, he will call on the Prime Minister at 4:15 p.m. at 7 Racecourse Road. At 6 p.m., he will call on President Pranab Mukherjee. As a special envoy of the Chinese President, Wang Yi will establish first contact with the new dispensation in Delhi. Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
And we are getting visuals now of the protests of the Chinese refugees that they're having against the visit of the Chinese foreign minister Wang Yi in the national capital today. He's just landed, and these are the visuals of that peaceful protest that the Tibetan refugees are taking out. Well, they are being allowed to go ahead with their protest, as you can clearly see there. The police surrounding the protesters, however, not stopping them from expressing themselves. It's rather customary every time there is a senior dignitary from China who is in New Delhi, who's in India. These protests do happen. Usually they are peaceful protests. However, in the past there have been instances where there have been threats of self-immolation as well when the situation gets tense. All right, we're now joined on the phone line by Yeshi Funsok. He's MP Tibetan Parliament in Exile. Mr. Funsok, first of all, would you like the Indian government to take up the issue that you all are talking about through your protests? Because usually that does not happen, but there have been protests this time around as well.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Yeshi Funsok.
What? I didn't understand your
What
question.
we want to know is that these protests are going on by Tibetan refugees in the national capital as the Chinese foreign minister lands in New Delhi. What is the particular demand that is being made at the moment?
Actually, the actual demand is there is no border between the India and China. The actual border between India and Tibet. So unfortunately, in the 1959, when the Tibet was lost, and now we are in exile. So, but in the Delhi today, the Tibetan people who are doing a protest against the Chinese foreign minister, we are demanding, and they are demanding to release the political prisoners inside Tibet, and then to request the Indian foreign minister and prime minister, the newly elected government, they should talk and dialogue with the Tibet issue also to resolve the Tibet issues in between the Dalai Lama's representative and the mainland Chinese leader as genuine autonomy. And then there is 130 Tibetan people inside who have given their life for self-immolation. Their demand is to back to His Holiness Dalai Lama in Potala, and then also to have their right to the language, Tibetan language should be in the first language in Tibet, and then the religious freedom. So entire these issues are still inside Tibet. People are too much under the depressed and under the pressure.
Okay.
So foreign minister, I think whenever any leaders used to visit in India, or the Indian leaders whenever they visit in China, it is our duty to demand and request and appeal.
All right, Mr. Yeshi, many thanks for speaking with Headlines today.